Sarah, you wrote about some cities and towns outside of Port-au-Prince for Tuesday's Monitor. What did you see outside the capital city? What were the conditions like?
Well, it's about 20 miles away where we went, but it was the epicenter of the earthquake. Driving down the road, you see a gigantic crack. There were some surveyors on the road, and it went down 30 feet. And then you arrive in this town, and it was as if everyone had forgotten this town. In the downtown area, there was literally not a soul there except for people working on recovery efforts on their own. We went back into some side streets and talked to some families there, and one family, thank God they were all alive, but their neighbors were not. There were 5 people that lived in their neighbor's house, and all of them were dead, and yet not a single organization had come back, and the smell was just overpowering. They really just feel really isolated there. Port-au-Prince has gotten all of the attention, and I mean, rightfully so. It is just desperately in need, but these outlying towns feel a little bit like they're on their own. Now, when we were there, we started to see some groups come in. There had been some doctors from Argentina that came in, and actually when we left, we saw a military helicopter overhead. So hopefully things at this second are getting better there, but when we were there, there was still a sense of desperation.
Can you talk about the frustration not only felt by the Haitian people, but by the international medical and aid workers who were having to wait hours and days to even attempt to do their jobs?
Sure. We spoke to one member of the Norwegian Red Cross at the hospital, for example, and he had been so frustrated because that day the Red Cross couldn't fly and land into Port-au-Prince. They had to fly into Santo Domingo. We actually tried to track down some U.S. military and asked them why, because the U.S. is in charge of the plane right now. And they said that it was because they're prioritizing the flights in per the government's request. So they wanted water first, and then food, and then medical supplies. But there are all these people out that are dying because they have simple wounds that are getting infected and they're not getting treated. So I think a lot of organizations just feel, they're just so frustrated that they can't do what they're there to do. There are all these supplies piling up at the airport, and security is an issue, and logistics are an issue because the roads are really narrow, and there's so much, there's so many piles of boulders along the road. So it's not that they're not doing anything, it's just that it's a logistical nightmare is what many people have called it.
And you just touched on that a little bit, some of the difficulties in moving around Haiti and Port-au-Prince. But finally, over this past weekend, relief supplies were finally getting out to the people who desperately needed them.
They were. We stopped by a field where the World Food Program was handing out cookies, but it does not feel nearly enough. I mean, you have these isolated areas of distribution, but you go into these settlements, and believe me, they are all over the city. I mean, it's on sidewalks, it's on plazas, it's in front of churches, it's anywhere people have space. And so many have told us that they have seen absolutely nothing.
Rescue teams from not only the United States, but other countries have been working around the clock trying to pull people from the rubble that is left there in Haiti.
Yeah, people from all over the world have been there. I mean, it's been amazing to watch. We spent almost an entire day with this rescue crew from Florida that had come down. It was a supermarket that had fallen, and they knew that 2 people at least were alive there. They had been talking to them, and they could tell that they located where they were based on 2 things. The people said they could see light from a radio tower in the distance, and also because there were fruit roll-ups where one of the girls, she's a 17-year-old girl, and she said there were fruit roll-ups, so they were working with the owner of the store to pinpoint exactly where she was. And they did get those 2 out and another man. And they're just these amazing stories all over the place. There are also heartbreaking stories where they can hear people, but they just cannot get them. Or by the time they're able to get to them, they have not been able, they haven't survived. So, but all over the place. There are teams from the U.S., from France, from Chile. It's been amazing to watch it, and heartbreaking.
I know that Haiti is predominantly a Catholic country, and so I believe many people were heartened to see your story from Sunday that talked about how Haitians, in whatever form they could, were going to church and being thankful and praying for aid and recovery.
Yeah, Sunday was heartbreaking in a way because so many churches have been ruined. They're on the ground. There were churches closed down and people sort of wandering around and wondering if Mass would take place, and yet at the same time there were people, families. It was amazing to see families, in their best clothes with Bibles in their hands, walking, just trying to get to any kind of service that they could.
As we wrap up our conversation here, can you talk about the resilience of the Haitian people, these people that have survived? Granted, the death toll numbers have been frightening and will continue to rise. But despite all of the deaths and trouble getting aid to these people, they're somehow still managing to move forward and try to find loved ones and collect their families and make something positive out of what has happened, and a terrible tragedy.
Yeah, there are a lot of bright lights in this situation. They're very spiritual people, and there is this calm within a lot of people that I've seen where they say this is fate, this is our country's fate, or God is going to take care of us. There are definitely reports of looting, and I do think that there is still a risk where the situation could tip. The aid has to get there faster. It has to get distributed. They have to work with rebuilding. It could rain, there are all kinds of things that could still happen. But overall, what's been amazing to me is just the sense of calm that's there, people, I can't even explain the situation that people are living in these refugee camps, and yet you go there, people are holding their babies, and they're smiling, and they're laughing, and, they're in pain, and they're hurt and they're hurting and going to hurt a lot more, but they're also, just really sort of depending on their family bonds and, singing and prayer and really trying to get through this difficult time.
Sarah Miller-Yana, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.